I came home on a Saturday evening expecting the usual noise, the TV buzzing in the living room, the faint smell of roasted chicken drifting from the kitchen, June humming some tune under her breath upstairs. Instead, I was greeted by silence. Too much silence. The kind that presses against your chest. Makes the walls feel closer than they are. My husband, Mark, was standing in the hallway like he'd been rooted there for hours. His shoulders were tense, his jaw tight, his eyes carrying something heavier than words. She's been in her room for 2 hours. He said quietly. She won't talk. I think she's been crying. For a split second, I thought maybe it was something small. Maybe she'd fought with a friend. Maybe she broke one of her Lego towers. Maybe it was just a meltdown the way 9-year-olds sometimes have. I dropped my bag and walked upstairs. My hand trembled slightly as I knocked. Sweetheart, it's me. Silence. I tried again. Can I come in? Nothing. I eased the door open and there she was. My daughter June, curled up on the bed like a wounded bird. Her face blotchy, clutching her phone like it was the only thing she had left in the world. June. My voice was soft, tentative. What's wrong? She shook her head. Nothing. But it wasn't nothing. Anyone could see that. I sat beside her and waited. Because sometimes silence works better than questions. Eventually she shoved the phone at me and buried her face into the pillow. Don't be mad, she whispered. On the screen was a screenshot. At first it didn't register, just words. Numbers. A grainy photo of my child. Then I saw it. A poll. What's worse? Her crooked haircut or her spoiled attitude? 19 votes. I scrolled. And the names blurred into knives. My mother, Margaret. In my day, girls didn't make such a fuss. A haircut was just a haircut. My sister, Courtney. Definitely her attitude. Always spoiled. Now she looks the part. My nephew Ethan. Just 11. She actually thought it was fashion. Can you believe that? My niece Bella. June's own age. Her constant rival. She was smiling like a model yesterday. So embarrassing. Then more comments. Snickering. Laughter written out like daggers. For a moment I thought maybe I misunderstood. Maybe this was some kind of twisted inside joke. But no, it was all there in plain words. My family mocking my child in a public poll. Voting on her humiliation as though it were a party game. Beside me, June's voice cracked. She didn't look at me when she spoke. Her face was pressed so hard into the pillow I could barely hear her. They told me I looked pretty. She whispered. They said it was fashion. They smiled at me. Mommy. They clapped. And then, her words broke apart. Jagged and raw. Why would they say that if they thought it was ugly? It hit me like a punch straight to the ribs. Not just the haircut. Not just the teasing. It was the betrayal. The way her trust had been turned into a weapon. My daughter wasn't just crying over uneven bangs. She was crying because people she trusted lied to her face. Then laughed behind her back. I pulled her against me. Held her trembling shoulders. Listen to me, I whispered. My voice steady even as my chest burned. This isn't about you. It's about them. You are beautiful. You are kind. And believing them only proves you're better than they are. She didn't answer. But she leaned into me. Small body quaking in my arms. Until her breathing slowed and the storm inside her settled. I stayed there until sleep finally tugged at her lashes. When I went back downstairs, Mark was waiting at the foot of the stairs. Is she okay? She will be, I told him. My voice was firmer than I felt. He nodded, but his eyes searched mine for something more. I gave him nothing. Not yet. Because even as I tried to process the bile of betrayal swirling inside me, one thing was already solid. This wasn't going to slide. Later that night, after June was asleep, I sat at the kitchen table with her phone in front of me. I scrolled until the words blurred. Each comment another cut. This wasn't just a bad joke. It was cruelty. Deliberate. Calculated. And they didn't know it yet. But what they did tonight would cost them everything. Part of me wanted to say I was shocked. But if I'm honest, I wasn't. Not really. It didn't feel like lightning out of nowhere. It felt like déjà vu. Because this wasn't new. They'd always laughed behind my back. This was just the first time they'd aimed their poison at my daughter. And that was unforgivable. I closed the phone. My hands steady in a way my heart wasn't. And I whispered into the still kitchen air, not her. Never her. When you've carried scars long enough, you learn to live with them. Tuck them under your skin. Pretend they don't ache when the weather changes. But sometimes the past doesn't just whisper, it echoes. And that Saturday night, with June's tears still damp on her pillow, I heard the echo loud and clear. Because this wasn't the first time someone I trusted handed me a blade disguised as kindness. I was 13. I had spent months babysitting for neighbors, mowing lawns, scrubbing dishes until my knuckles cracked just to save up for my first real dress. A school dance was coming. And I wanted, just once, to feel like the girls who floated into the gym with heads high and eyes sparkling. I found a dress, soft fabric, delicate hem. To me it was magic. Courtney came into my room that evening. She was smiling wide, offering to help. She pinned the hem, tugged the straps, told me I looked amazing. And I believed her. I walked into that dance with my chin high, thinking maybe I'd finally get to shine. But in the bathroom, I heard it, her voice. Sharp and cruel, laughing with her friends. Can you believe she actually wore it? She thinks she looks glamorous. It looks like a curtain. The girls howled, their laughter echoing against the tiles. I froze, clutching the stall door, my heart collapsing in on itself. Later, when I told my parents what had happened, desperate for someone to defend me, my mother's words were swift and final. Courtney was only trying to help. Don't be ungrateful. Not humiliated, not betrayed, ungrateful. At 13, you don't forgive, you just bleed. Years passed, but the pattern didn't. Courtney always sparkled, always perfect in their eyes. I was too sensitive. The quiet one, the invisible one, and every time I tried to speak up, Margaret silenced me with the same line. You're imagining it, Lydia. So I took it, I swallowed it down, until June came along. Fast forward to last year's spring fair. Normally, Bella, Courtney's daughter, was the star. Perfect hair, perfect outfit, the loudest cheers. June usually clapped politely from the sidelines, her smile steady even when she got no applause. But that year, she decided to make her own fairy costume. Glue, glitter, scraps of fabric all over the dining table. A 9-year-old's masterpiece. And she won. Prettiest costume. A ribbon pinned right to her chest. Her face was pure pride. Pure joy. The kind of glow every mother lives for. But the family's reaction told another story. My mother clapped like she was watching the weather forecast. Courtney smiled so tight it looked like pain. Bella sulked, her eyes wet with resentment. Maybe you're wondering, why didn't I call them out right then? Why didn't I defend June? The truth? I wanted so badly to believe I was imagining it. To let her bask in her moment without dragging my old suspicions into it. So I smiled with her. I let her glow. But inside, I knew. That was the day Courtney decided June wasn't just my daughter, she was competition. And here's the part that twists the knife. Through all this, I was the one holding the family together. I made good money in IT. Enough to cover my bills and theirs. I helped my parents with their mortgage, their groceries, their utilities. I helped Courtney open her salon, fronted her deposit, bought her equipment, even slipped her money in slow months so she wouldn't lose it. Why? Because I thought that was what a good daughter did. Because I thought maybe, just maybe, if I gave enough, they'd finally see me. Because June deserved cousins, grandparents, a family. I told myself I was buying peace. But the truth? I was feeding their resentment. They hated me for having more. They hated June for shining when Bella didn't. And now, they'd proven just how far that hatred would go. Friday afternoon, before the poll, Courtney called me. Bring June over, she said. I'll do her hair for the school event Monday. I'll style both girls. They'll look amazing. And maybe you're shaking your head. Why would I say yes? Why would I trust her? Because June begged me. Because she wanted so badly to believe her aunt could make her beautiful. Because Courtney was a professional stylist, it was her job. And because sometimes, even against all better judgment, you want to believe family won't be cruel to a child. So I said yes. I regret it with every fiber of my being. When I picked her up, her bangs were jagged, her layers uneven, but she was glowing. They clapped. They praised. They told her it was fashion. And I smiled with her. Because what was I supposed to do? Break her heart in the car? Tell her she looked ridiculous when she was grinning ear to ear? I let her have her moment. But Saturday night, staring at that pole, it hit me like a train. The haircut wasn't fashion. The praise wasn't real. It was the same trick Courtney had pulled on me at 13. Only now she'd aimed it at my child. And that was when something inside me snapped. I wasn't going to take it anymore. Not for me. Not for June. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the dim glow of my laptop screen. The house silent except for the occasional creak of settling wood. My phone lay face down beside me. But I could still feel the weight of those words seared into my memory. Each comment like a scar I couldn't scrub away. My daughter's tears echoed louder than any silence. And for the first time in years, I realized I wasn't helpless. The first thing I did was simple. Brutal, but simple. I opened my banking app. With a few clicks, I canceled every automatic transfer that had been draining from my account to theirs. Courtney's salon rent. The top-ups on my parents' utilities. The quiet handouts I'd been slipping into their lives. 5 minutes. That's all it took. 5 minutes to end years of enabling. My fingers were steady, but my chest felt like a storm was tearing through. Some people might call it harsh. But let me ask. What kind of family sets up a child for humiliation and then laughs while she cries? No, they weren't family anymore. They were dependents I had been bankrolling. And the Bank of Lydia was officially closed. The second thing I did was for June. At sunrise, I knocked gently on her door. She peeked out, her eyes swollen, her hair sticking out in uneven clumps that made my stomach twist. Come on, I said. We're going out. She looked confused, wary, but she followed me to the car. I told her we were going for pancakes. And we did. But first, we stopped at the best salon in town. Not Courtney's cramped little shop with curling irons older than Bella, no. A place with wide windows, sleek chairs, stylists whose hands moved like artists. When the stylist saw June's hair, she frowned, running careful fingers through the hacked bangs. This wasn't clumsy, she muttered under her breath. Whoever did this didn't care how she'd feel. I wanted to snap back. Oh, they cared, just not in the way you think. But instead, I smiled tightly and said, "Can you fix it?" She could. Snip by snip. Uneven layers softened, jagged edges reshaped. When the final strands fell, June stared at herself in the mirror. For a long moment she said nothing. Then, slowly, the corners of her mouth lifted. There it was. The smile they had tried to take. "You look perfect," I told her, kneeling beside her chair so our eyes were level. "And tomorrow, you'll walk into school with your head high. They don't get to take that from you." June nodded, her fingers brushing her sleek new bob. Her smile wasn't just relief, it was power. After pancakes, we went to the park. She ran, she laughed, her hair catching the sunlight. I took a deep breath and for the first time since Friday, I felt air filling my lungs instead of choking me. But back home, reality sat waiting at the kitchen table like an unwelcome guest. My laptop screen glared at me. The screenshot of that poll still open. The bile still hot in my throat. I remembered something I'd read months ago. An article about cyberbullying. It said 1 in 3 kids between the ages of 8 and 12 had already been targeted online. Some cried themselves to sleep. Some developed stomachaches before school. Some, God help them, didn't make it to adulthood because the cruelty was too heavy to carry. That statistic clung to me now like a warning siren. I wasn't going to let June be part of that number. The American Psychological Association had guidelines too. I remembered scanning them once for work. Don't blame the child. Document the evidence. Report where necessary. Rebuild their confidence. I thought about how I had already checked those boxes without even realizing it, hugging June instead of questioning her. Keeping the screenshots. Showing her reflection in the salon mirror so she could see her worth. Maybe instinct and guidance weren't so far apart. But instinct wasn't enough anymore. That evening, after June drifted to sleep with a smile instead of tears, I opened the laptop again. My hands hovered over the keyboard. I could scream. I could rage. But rage alone doesn't dismantle people who thrive on cruelty. No, what dismantles them is the truth. And I had plenty of it. I gathered the screenshots, every comment, every name, every vote. I arranged them in a neat little folder. Evidence, not slander, not exaggeration, just their own words, captured forever. Because soon, they were going to learn something I had spent a lifetime learning the hard way. Sometimes silence protects no one. Sometimes silence is complicity, and I was done being complicit. Tomorrow, I thought, as the glow of the screen lit my face. Tomorrow I start pulling the thread. And when it unravels, they'll realize too late what they've lost. I closed the laptop, leaned back in my chair, and whispered into the still night, "This ends now." Sunday night bled into Monday like ink spreading across a page. I didn't go into the office. I told them I'd be working from home. Though what I was really working on had nothing to do with IT projects or client meetings. No, my focus was on one thing, telling the truth. You see, Courtney had always thrived on her reputation. The professional stylist, the perfect mom, the golden daughter. She built her salon's entire client base on that illusion. And illusions are fragile things, one crack and they shatter. I didn't scream. I didn't rant. I didn't call her out by name on every social platform I could find. That would have made me look bitter, vengeful, and I wasn't going to give her that satisfaction. Instead, I logged into the local moms group chat, the digital village where playdates are arranged. Bake sales are coordinated, and reputations are quietly made or destroyed. I typed carefully. My fingers didn't tremble. This, I wrote, attaching a photo of June's jagged haircut before the salon fixed it. Was done by a professional stylist to her own niece. She told my daughter she looked beautiful, then turned around and mocked her in a family poll online. If she can do this to her own family, imagine how she treats the kids you bring to her chair. That was all. No insults, no exaggeration, just the truth and the evidence. Then I hit send. For a moment, nothing. The little dots on the screen blinked as people typed. Then disappeared. Then blinked again. My stomach knotted. What if they ignored it? What if they thought I was overreacting? Then the replies came. That's awful. Never booking her again. Parents deserve to know about this. Poor girl. She must have been heartbroken. And just like that, the ripple began. One voice becomes two. Then four. Then a chorus. By Monday afternoon, texts started rolling in from friends. Courtney's salon is half empty. Parents are canceling appointments. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I felt calm, cold, even. This wasn't vengeance, it was exposure. The mask was slipping, and people were finally seeing the Courtney I had known all along. By Tuesday, another message. She had 2 no-shows this morning. Everyone's canceling. And by Wednesday, I knew she'd figured it out. My phone rang while I was cooking dinner. Courtney's name flashed across the screen like a warning siren. For a second, I considered letting it go to voicemail. But no, she needed to hear me. "You're behind this," she snapped the second I answered. No hello, no pause. Her voice was high, panicked. "My clients are canceling left and right. You're trying to destroy me." I let her rant. It was just a haircut. She spat. "A joke. You've always been jealous of me. And now you're dragging me down with you." Her voice was shaking, though. That told me more than her words ever could. Finally, when she ran out of breath, I spoke. My voice didn't waver. "I didn't destroy you, Courtney. I just told the truth. The rest, that's on you." And then I hung up. For years, I had stayed quiet. Let them laugh at me. Let them use me. Let them treat me like I was invisible. But this time, I spoke, and all it took was the truth to bring her empire of lies crashing down. Still, I knew this wasn't over. Courtney was like a cornered animal now, angry, desperate, dangerous. And Margaret, my mother, wouldn't stay silent either. The call was coming. I was right. 2 days later, my phone buzzed. Margaret's name. I swiped to answer, bracing myself. "How could you do this?" she snapped. Her voice sharp as broken glass. "She's your sister. Her clients are canceling left and right. You want to ruin her over a haircut? Over a silly joke?" I almost laughed. A silly joke. That's what she called it. You called my daughter spoiled. I said, my voice low, controlled. You laughed at her. And you've been laughing at me my whole life. Well, I'm done being your punchline. There was a sharp intake of breath. Like I'd slapped her. Families don't cut each other off. No, I shot back. Families don't humiliate children. You lost the right to call yourself my family the second you mocked my daughter. Silence. Then the line went dead. I set the phone down. My pulse steady. For the first time, I wasn't the one left gasping. But I knew what came next. This wasn't the end. Margaret and Courtney weren't the type to retreat quietly. They would come. In person. And when they did, they would bring years of bitterness to my doorstep. And when that knock came, I would be ready. The knock came 3 days later. Sharp enough to rattle the frame. I knew before I even opened the door who it would be. The air outside was heavy. As if the sky itself was holding its breath. I pulled the door open. And there they were. Margaret. My mother. Her jaw set like granite. And Courtney. Red-eyed. Furious. Her hands balled into fists at her sides. Bella lingered a few steps behind. Arms folded. Face twisted into something between defiance and shame. You've gone too far. Courtney spat before I could speak. Her voice cracked. But not from guilt, rage. You're ruining me on purpose. My business. My life. All over a haircut. All over a little gossip. Behind her, Margaret stepped forward, her voice rising like she was the injured party. Do you understand what you've done? We can't pay the bills. Courtney can't keep her salon going. We can't keep the house without your help. Is this really worth tearing the family apart? Something inside me snapped, but it wasn't a wild explosion. It was quiet, steady, final, like a rope breaking after being stretched too long. You want to talk about tearing a family apart? I said, my voice colder than the November wind at their backs. You did that when you taught me I was never good enough. When you defended her while she humiliated me. When you laughed at me year after year and told me I was too sensitive. And now you've done it to my daughter. Courtney rolled her eyes, just like she had when we were kids. As if nothing I said ever mattered. Oh, please. You've always been jealous of me. That's what this is really about. You can't stand that people like me more than you. I laughed. Bitter. Dry. Jealous? Courtney, the only thing I'm jealous of is how you've managed to live your entire life without an ounce of self-awareness. Her face reddened, but I didn't stop. Do you want to know why your salon is empty? Because I finally told the truth. I didn't invent anything. I didn't twist anything. I showed people exactly what you did. And they decided they don't want you near their kids' hair. That's not on me. That's on you. Margaret's voice cracked then, desperation breaking through her anger. We can't keep the house without your help. Please, Lydia, think of us. There it was again. That word. Help. Always help. Always give. Always swallow. No, I said. You made your choices. Live with them. I'm not funding you anymore. I'm not swallowing my anger anymore. And you will never get near June again. Courtney's mask slipped then. For the first time, her eyes darted away, then snapped back to mine. We can't pay the mortgage. She said, her voice ragged, hollow. You've destroyed me. I stared at her. The sister who once pinned a dress hem while plotting my humiliation. The woman who turned my child's trust into a weapon. And I said quietly, no, Courtney, you destroyed yourself. I just stopped paying for it. Behind me, I felt Mark's presence. He stepped closer, his hand resting firmly on the door. A silent signal. You don't have to stand alone anymore. I met my mother's eyes one last time. You wanted to know if it was worth tearing the family apart? My voice didn't waver. Yes, it was. Because June is worth more than every one of you combined. And with that, Mark closed the door. The knock came again. Frantic this time. But I didn't answer. For the first time in my life. I didn't owe them anything. And they knew it. Inside, June's laughter drifted faintly from upstairs. The sound of a child free of their poison. I leaned against the closed door. My heart pounding not with fear. But with something fiercer. Resolve. They thought they could twist my daughter the way they twisted me. They thought wrong. This time, I wasn't the quiet one. This time, I was the shield. Silence followed them out of my life. Not the comfortable kind, but the kind that settles after a storm. When the air still tastes of thunder but the sky has begun to clear. The fallout was swift. Courtney's salon, once buzzing with neighborhood moms and their chatty kids, was empty. Chairs sat abandoned, mirrors streaked with fingerprints no one bothered to wipe. The appointment book grew lighter day by day, until there were no names left at all. Word had spread faster than even I expected, through the mom group. Through PTA whispers. Through quiet text chains. Don't take your children there. She humiliated her own niece. What do you think she'll do to yours? By the end of the month, she closed the doors. The grand opening sign that had once made her beam now collected dust, half torn and curling at the edges. And Margaret, without my money covering her mortgage, the utilities, the groceries, she buckled to. For years she had leaned on me, convincing me it was duty, convincing me it was love. Without me, the cracks in her perfect facade split wide. The house went dark, then quiet, then empty. One afternoon I drove by and saw the moving truck in the driveway. No goodbye, no apology, just the sight of my childhood home being stripped bare and carted away. They left town, broke, bitter, silent. And you know what? I didn't miss them. But while they collapsed, June grew. Her hair softened as the jagged cuts grew out, falling into smooth strands that brushed her shoulders. The butchered bangs became a memory, replaced by a sleek frame that let her face glow. More importantly, the shame that had haunted her melted away. I saw it in the little things first, her laughter returning at breakfast, her shoulders no longer curling inward when she walked into school, her eyes holding mine without flinching when she told me about her day. And then came the night that will stay carved into my memory forever. She had a small performance at school, a skit with her classmates. Nothing grand, just a handful of parents in folding chairs, a shaky spotlight on stage. But when June stepped into the light, she didn't falter. She stood tall, her voice clear, her lines spoken with pride. Afterwards, as the applause faded, she ran into my arms. She squeezed my hand tight and whispered, "Mom, I know now. You'll always stand up for me." That moment, worth more than every dollar I'd ever handed over to Margaret. More than every sleepless night I'd spent wondering if I was enough. That moment was everything. Still, healing doesn't erase scars. We went to see a counselor at school, part of a trauma-informed program for kids who'd been bullied. The counselor explained how cyberbullying often overlaps with the offline world, how the words on a screen can wound deeper than bruises. She told me I'd done the right thing, documenting the evidence, refusing to blame June, showing her how to rise above instead of shrinking. She even suggested I join a workshop for parents, to help others understand that silence isn't protection. And for once, I believed her. There was even one more ripple I hadn't expected. Late one night, as I was folding laundry, my phone buzzed with a message request. The name made my breath hitch. Bella, Courtney's daughter. I'm sorry. The message read, clumsy, uneven. I didn't mean to hurt June. I didn't want her to win again. Please don't tell my mom I wrote this. I stared at the words, feeling something shift inside me. Anger, yes, but also a strange flicker of hope. Maybe the curse could break with the next generation. Maybe Bella didn't have to carry her mother's bitterness forever. I didn't reply, not yet, but I saved the message. Because maybe one day, when June is older, I'll show it to her, not as proof that Bella was forgiven, but as proof that even in the darkest cycle, cracks can let in a little light. For now, though, I watched my daughter twirl in the living room, practicing her stage walk, her laughter bright, her hair swinging freely, and I thought, this is what family is supposed to sound like. Not cruelty, not silence, not poison, just laughter in a warm room, safe and unbroken. Months passed, and the world outside our walls spun on as if nothing had happened. Courtney's salon remained shuttered, its windows dark and dusty, the closed sign swinging like a gravestone in the wind. Margaret's old house sat abandoned, weeds crawling up the porch rails, foreclosure notices plastered against the door. They had vanished from our town, leaving only silence where once there had been endless demands and expectations. But inside my own home, something else was blooming. June's laughter rang louder now. Her steps lighter. She walked into school with her head high, no longer curling into herself. Her teachers noticed too. Notes came home saying she was participating more. Her confidence was shining through. And every time she stood a little taller, I felt something inside me heal. 2. One evening, after dinner, I sat at the kitchen table while June worked on a drawing. She sketched a little fairy with wide wings and a crown of flowers. Her pencil moving quickly, her face calm. I watched her, remembering how fragile she'd looked curled up on that bed, clutching her phone like it was the only thing she had left. "Mom," she said suddenly, without looking up, "do you think it's bad that you told everyone what Aunt Courtney did?" The question hung in the air like smoke. I took a deep breath. "No," I said slowly, "because I didn't tell lies. I didn't make anything up. I showed people the truth. And sometimes, telling the truth is the only way to protect others." She nodded, her pencil still scratching across the page. "So, you didn't destroy her?" I shook my head. "She destroyed herself. I just stopped covering it up." Her eyes lifted to mine then. Wise beyond her years, she smiled faintly, as though she understood more than I'd expected. Later that week, I received an email from the school board. They were launching a new anti-bullying initiative, assemblies for students, workshops for parents, a direct reporting line for cyberbullying. They wanted me to speak at one of the sessions, to share what June had been through, to show other parents how to step in before it was too late. For a moment, fear gripped me. Speaking up had always brought punishment in my family. But then I thought of June, standing on that stage, whispering, "You'll always stand up for me." So I agreed. And when I stood in front of that room weeks later, parents and teachers watching me, I told the story, not with bitterness, but with clarity. I showed the screenshots. I talked about how silence isn't protection, how evidence matters, how resilience can be built one small act at a time. People nodded, some wiped tears, others took furious notes. For once, my voice wasn't dismissed. For once, people listened. Afterwards, a mother approached me. "Thank you," she said, her voice thick. "My daughter went through something similar last year. I didn't know what to do. Hearing you, it helps." And in that moment, I realized something vital. This wasn't just about me or June. It was about every child sitting in a room somewhere, clutching a phone, wondering why people they trusted had turned against them. If speaking out could shield even one of them, then yes, it was worth it. But still, late at night, when the house was quiet, I sometimes asked myself, did I go too far? Cutting them off completely, exposing Courtney, shutting the door so firmly. Some might say yes, that I was harsh, that it was just a haircut. Others would say I should have done it years earlier. But here's what I know. My daughter is safe. She is whole. She is laughing again. And for the first time in my life, I am no longer the family's punchline. I closed my eyes one evening and whispered into the stillness. Not for anyone else but myself. I drew the line. And I would draw it again. June peeked in then, her new ribbon tied neatly in her hair, her sketchbook under her arm. "Good night, Mom," she said, her smile soft. "Sure. Good night, sweetheart." As I switched off the lamp, the kitchen bathed in shadows. I thought about all the noise, all the cruelty, all the betrayal, and how, in the end, it wasn't revenge that gave me peace. It was knowing I'd built a shield strong enough to keep my daughter safe. I didn't burn bridges. I just refused to keep carrying the weight of people who were willing to drown us. So if you're asking me whether it was worth it, whether tearing the family apart was justified, my answer is simple. Yes. Because June is worth more than every one of them combined. And for the first time, that truth feels like freedom.